Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Pierre Kirkinney, and I help manage our Center of Excellence at Anaplan, or as we like to refer to ourselves internally, we're the Anaplan on Anaplan team. Now, the goal of this session is to help illustrate how organizations have used Anaplan to drive strategic decision-making and or transform their organizations. And in a few minutes, I'm going to call on stage some special guests that are going to walk us through their Anaplan stories. But before I do that, what I wanted to do was spend a couple minutes with you and actually walk you through our internal story in terms of how Anaplan, the company, has leveraged Anaplan, the platform, to be able to drive strategic decision-making as well as transformation of our organization. Now, where I wanted to start was giving you some historical context of some of the work that my team has been primarily responsible for. And to do this, I'm going to showcase our original charter. So our team's original charter was threefold. The first thing that our team was tasked with is what we called self-service data strategy, meaning it was my team's responsibility to bring all the information and data in from all of our enterprise source systems, whether it be our ERP, our CRM, applicant tracking system, and so on. Bring all that information and data into our Anaplan Data Hub, ensure it was valid, accurate, and whole so that we could share it with the businesses so they could quickly deploy their planning models. The second thing my team was responsible for is what we call governance. And governance really boils down to two things: establishing our rules of engagement and best practices, so as we built our models across the organization, we did so in a cohesive manner. And those two pillars really set the foundational pieces to the third pillar of our charter, which in my opinion was the most important work we've been working through the last couple of years, which is standing up connected planning at Anaplan. So how have we done over the last couple of years? Well, I'd say we've done pretty well. As of right now, we've deployed over 60 models across all of our lines of businesses that are connected through a robust series of data integrations. And as a result, well, we've been able to reap some nice benefits as well. Some of the benefits that we've realized internally have been in the form of cost and expense savings, some of them in the form of time savings, both at the individual and company level, where we've been able to shave some time off our finance and accounting close cycles. But most importantly, what we have as an organization now is full alignment on the information that we share across the organization. In addition to that, what connected planning has done for my team is transformed us from a team that was primarily responsible for the data and standing up the planning models to a team that could really leverage that information, all those data sets, all those plans, to help drive some strategic thinking for our organization. So we've recently added a fourth pillar to our charter, in which we call business insights. So let me give you some examples of how we drive strategic decision-making at our organization. And I'm going to give you some very tactical examples, but they correlate back to two of our core top-down deliverables at this moment. The first one being is we're looking to grow, and we're looking to grow to $1 billion in revenue. And the second is, at some point in the future, we'd like to become profitable. And so let me share some insights that we're developing that align to those two deliverables. Within our sales organization, it's important for us to make sure we have the right go-to-market strategy and the right sales resources to be able to drive that growth. And so we stood up a series of models that give us that type of insight. One in particular that we recently stood up is what we call the win-loss model. And what the win-loss model does for us is it brings all of our opportunity information in across a number of different dimensions, so things like use cases and industries and segment size. And what it allows us to do is analyze that information to determine where we've historically succeeded and where we've, more importantly, failed, so we can adjust our go-to-market strategy and allow us to close more deals, but not just close more deals, close deals that are larger in size. The next thing within our finance organization is we have a whole suite of use cases developed, and a lot of them correlate to our costs and expenses, and some of them bring the information in near real time. So we can analyze the information associated to our costs and expenses so we can curb frivolous spending proactively and not wait and react reactively. Within marketing, in order to scale to $1 billion in revenue, one of the things that's important for our organization is make sure we have a sufficient pipeline. And what I mean by pipeline is the leads and contacts that you're required in order to generate the sales. And so what we have is a suite of models that allow us to do that analysis. One in particular brings our account information in, analyze that information, and then assign those accounts to the right campaigns to put us in a position where we can generate more quality leads and contacts. And then finally, none of this is possible without the right workforce. So within our HR department, we have a series of models that let us analyze the market conditions and our compensation to our employees to ensure we're accurately and fairly compensating our employees, and as a result, making sure that they're happy, satisfied, and we're able to retain our top talent. Lastly, as we've gone through our connected planning journey internally, we've come across a number of challenges. We've faced a number of hurdles. We've developed a number of solutions based on those challenges. And the other thing that's happened is our organization has transformed. And a lot of these can be categorized among 5 buckets, which we call the 5 pillars of connected planning. Now, I could talk ad nauseum about each of these, but I know you didn't come here to listen to me speak. You came here to hear from our customers. So instead, what I'm going to do is put a shameless plug. We've already done the upfront work for you guys to be able to see how connected planning has impacted our organization through what we call the connected planning playbook. And if you haven't already taken a look, I encourage every one of you to do so. The playbook sits on our community. It's over 60 pages, but it details out our journey to connected planning, some of the lessons we've learned, and the way that Anaplan has transformed our organization. So with that said, I know you guys want to hear from our customers. Please help me in welcoming on stage Ryan Walsh, Charles Passauer, Ignacio Sturparo, and Paul O'Brien. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's start nice and easy. I'm going to have each of you actually introduce yourselves. So, Ryan, let's start with you, and we can go down to Paul. We'll start with some introductions.
Sure. Hi, Ryan Walsh with American Tire Distributors. I'm Vice President of Financial Planning and Analysis. I lead our company's FP&A activities. American Tire is a $5 billion revenue business. We're the largest supplier of replacement tires in North America. We operate about 140 distribution centers across the United States and Canada. And my responsibility over the last 3 years is both to build a best-in-class FP&A team and bring in technology innovation, and Anaplan was that solution for us.
Hi everybody, I'm Charles Passauer. I work for Rolled at Shell. I work in our digitalization transformation area, covering the FP&A area specifically. So I've been involved in Anaplan for a couple of years. I'll tell you about our journey here in just a sec. But I cover our business of one of our upstream businesses called Deep Water Business. Does all of our deep water exploration and development across the globe.
Hello everyone, Ignacio, my name is Triparo. I work in Anheuser-Busch InBev. We are the largest brewery in the world. So most probably if you like beer, and hopefully you like beer, so most probably you try one of our brands, Budweiser here in the US, definitely not the most common one. I have been, my history in the company has been, surrounding the FP&A type of activities, and since the last couple of years, leading what we call PPM, it's actually Planning and Performance Management in our global procurement organization. So for you to understand, it's kind of like an FP&A in function, taking care of the financials of the function.
Hi, I'm Paul O'Brien. I run operations at Symantec. Symantec is a cybersecurity vendor, focuses both on the enterprise and on consumer. You probably know us from the Norton and LifeLock brand on the consumer side, and if you're in technology, you probably understand it on the enterprise side. Operations is probably a euphemism for anything that is not working correctly. You kind of get thrown in the middle of it. We currently took on our challenge with Anaplan and focused on a couple of very thorny areas that we had, which was revenue planning and predictions, our deal desk flow and deal approval, and our territory planning quota.
Well, thank you guys. Maybe as we make our way back down now, you can talk generally speaking about how your organizations are currently leveraging Anaplan. So maybe if we want to start back with Paul or Ignacio.
Okay, I started to go there a little bit, but I'll add just a little bit more color to it. So one of our challenges that we ran into is we have kind of an evolving business model on our enterprise security side. Years ago, you used to be able to sell software directly to customers. They installed it on premise, and you recognized all of your revenue. We've shifted significantly to a SaaS model. That shift has gone quicker than we anticipated. With SaaS, you don't get to recognize all of your revenue up front. You're recognizing it 1 month at a time as you earn it out. So the challenge was actually predicting what % of our business was going to come in as a licensed business and which % of our business was going to come in as a SaaS business. And the only way we could do that is to put a relatively sophisticated system in place using Anaplan that allowed us to go in, grab the opportunities that our sales reps were creating, run some analytics against it, and score it so that we could understand the revenue value to help us predict for the street, for the market as we were going out every quarter. We then extended from there. We got into Deal Desk, which is a natural extension of that since we have a lot of this rich data there. We then began to score those deals, and every year we go through a fairly significant task of doing territory planning and quota for our 2,000 quota-bearing salespeople that we have working inside the company. So that was a pretty good task for us as well.
So for AVI, it was actually around end of 16. Our Europe colleagues, I'm part of a GHQ function. So our Europe colleagues were already testing and getting to know. So they presented the solution to us. At that moment, we were going through an integration, important M&A, and we had to, at the moment, replace very quickly systems like systems that were coming from 2 different companies. In one specific area was critical in M&A, and it's very critical for procurement. It has to do with synergies delivered related to the business case of the M&A. So we had to really, turn the situation quickly to put something in place that can give accountability, visibility, and agile type of turnaround if something's not going well. And that's how we got to Anaplan and how we implemented. So that was our very first step with Anaplan.
Yeah, for us in Shell, I think we've recognized that planning is an area of opportunity for some time, and yet, while we've had a lot of big efforts to try and upgrade technology tools, look at processes, the inherent nature of a global company being very complex, where you have to roll all these different views up, has caused us a lot of challenges. And what we've learned is that we often focus on kind of our, say, big bang approach on technology, and it just wasn't working. So what we started to do is look externally and understand what other people are doing, and we kept hearing Anaplan. Others were kind of looking at Anaplan, so we wanted to know what that was all about. And then Agile was the other one that kept coming up, and deploying in a smaller, bite-sized kind of way. In parallel, we did an effort to look at what is driving our complexity, and was a bit surprised to find out that it wasn't the big tools that often get the most focus from management. It was actually the single tool that we use the most for planning in Shell, which is Excel. And that is causing us problems because it wasn't just one Excel file, obviously it's thousands. And so we wanted to start to look at some of those processes, and that was an area that Anaplan has helped us with.
Over the course of the past 2 years, we've built 6 distinct models. Year 1, I would call it foundational. We created models that replaced what we had previously done for our annual planning process, all 3 financial statements, and underpinning that were 2 distinct other models for sales forecasting and workforce planning. And as we moved into year 2 of our journey with Anaplan, we extended the platform to zero-based budgeting, long-range planning, and customer rebate management.
Yeah. So Ryan, I know when we were talking, you joined ATD about 3.5, 4 years ago. And I think initially when you joined ATD, you were tasked with 2 things, finding a best-in-class team and then finding a best-in-class solution. So after you developed your best-in-class team, you started looking for the solution. I know you guys did a lot of research, and then you ultimately concluded with Anaplan. Can you talk to us a little bit about the research you did, the reason why you went with Anaplan, your expectations when you finally purchased Anaplan, and where you guys are currently in terms of where Anaplan aligns with your expectations initially?
Yeah, we went into the research process with an open mind. It was the first time ETD had been in market to identify a budgeting solution in about 5 years. And the marketplace obviously has changed quite dramatically. And I think through a combination of conducting research through Gartner, doing customer referral calls, and then an extensive amount of on-site demonstrations with competing vendors, we ultimately found that the customization and flexibility that Anaplan could do for us, and pressing these vendors to use our data and not continuing to go through like dog and pony shows, it really distinguished Anaplan from its peer group, that it could deliver on our expectations.
Charles, what about for you guys? I know Shell, obviously, incredibly large, very mature organization. I'm sure you had a number of legacy solutions that were already in place. Can you talk to us about that process from transitioning from perhaps a legacy solution to something like Anaplan?
Yeah, so I alluded a little bit to earlier that we had these, some of the commonly known, the bigger systems, but then we also have Excel files. And so what we've been able to do is focus more on what really impacts the assets. And so what we've been using the Excel files for over time is kind of band-aiding things that you inherently need to deal with data management that's not right. It's become a Band-Aid for a process, or a system doesn't do something, so people take it offline. And so we've kind of gone through a bit of a change effort to try out Anaplan, try out a new way of working, try Agile, and we're really acting our way towards what would be more of a process transformation for us. And what we've learned is we've started really small, very basic. It was successful. We showed that we can deliver faster. There's something to this. And now the opportunities are just immense. And we're finding out there's a lot more opportunities coming to us. Hey, you're making some progress in this area. We're having some of the same challenges. And so now it's become much more of a change journey than it was maybe, say, a technology journey.
What about you guys, Ignacio? I know you talked a little bit about your journey through your Anaplan ecosystem. You mentioned that you guys started with a small use case, and then eventually you guys deployed a very complex model. Can you talk about that transition from starting somewhere small and then trying to tackle something very large, and some of the benefits you've realized as a result?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it was not a small case, because we went live in the whole world. I mean, we're talking about a company was getting 30 to 40% bigger overnight. But it was simple in the case. I mean, there was nothing of what we're seeing these days about machine learning or simulations or those things. Those things were not there, right? It was simple in that case. But we got to know. I would say quite quickly what Anaplan was really good at. We found an amazing partner in Sonum. So I thank you very much. And we got to know not only all the things and the flexibility and the scalability of Anaplan that was in what we call a simple case, that was called our attention, right? And we're able to deploy in 3-4 months. And then there was 2017, March or April, and then we say, okay, let's test the capabilities of the tool more on the calculation engine. So we put maybe the most complex product that we have in procurement. It has to do with risk management. So in Brewer, we are exposed to a bunch of commodities, and definitely by having a global footprint to the most exotic currencies that you can imagine. So we put the most complex case in place. We're able to deploy extremely easy, and taking something that was taking like couple weeks, down to 2 hours, and that's where we tick the box in terms of the engine calculation and the scalability of Anaplan in comparison in the relation with the ABI needs.
Yeah. And sticking with the theme of benefits that you've realized from the Anaplan platform, Paul, I know when we were talking, you talked about historically how you didn't have a lot of the views that you would have liked with the data sets that you had, and Anaplan provided those new views for you guys. Can you talk about how you leverage the Anaplan platform to be able to analyze or better analyze your information, and then how that's led to better decision making?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 cases in particular. The revenue forecast that we had a problem with on the enterprise side was quite dramatic. And if you think about technology, you typically take new technology and apply it to a really simple use case that's maybe not as visible, get your learnings over with, and then increasingly tackle more complex thing. we went straight at it. We went to revenue forecasting, which is visible to the board, to the CEO. It's under accounting standards. It's auditable. It's everything that you don't want to happen. And we did it relatively quick. And part of that process, as I mentioned, was going in and actually going into our Salesforce.com instance and pulling out all of the quotes and the opportunities that sales reps have done, scored. We applied 605, 606 logic from the accounting side, and we began to take snapshots throughout the course of the quarter. And when you put technology in place, it usually exposes a lot of downstream problems, and one of those were process problems. We began to look at what the revenue value was, we thought, week 3 of the quarter, and look at what it was week 12 of the quarter, and it dramatically shifted. Well, we found out that our sales reps were going in on week 3. They really didn't know what they're going to sell the customer yet. They just knew the customer had a $10 million budget, so they put any configuration of product in there. By the time we got to week 10, it became more real, and that's where all the surprises occurred. So it forces you to go much further downstream and work with those process problems that exist as a result of it. And then secondarily, when we turned it into Deal Desk, we really began to for the first time, be able to compare quotes against what customers had played prior, what the industry of that customer is in, what their average discount is, what the average discount of the channel was. So we had so much more rich information to make decisions on. It was quite impactful.
Let's do this. I'm going to wrap up with one more question, and I'll have each of you answer it, and then perhaps we can spend the last 5 to 10 minutes having the audience ask you guys questions. But I imagine we have a lot of audience members that are either brand new to Anaplan or just getting started with their Anaplan connected planning journey. What piece of advice would you have for those audience members as they start or are embarking through their Anaplan journey?
My perspective is just kind of rip the bandage off quickly. I mean, we probably spent a year and a half thinking about kicking the can down the road, not making a decision until a flash moment came and we were forced to go do something. Life became so much better once we got these things implemented. I suppose we were afraid of the work and afraid of the risk factors and afraid of going into the data, but it always takes something significant to push you over the line, then you start kicking in and realizing the benefits. So I would get right to it.
For me, it's definitely about the scope, defining the use case and the scope you're going to tackle, assuming you're going to be really starting with the Anaplan journey. Defining the scope is clear. It's going to tell you, it's going to make make yourself a lot of questions. If there's going to be change management included, if there's going to be process that you're going to have to change. So the more narrow you can get that scope, the better it's going to be. The more fast you're going to go in the learning curve. Of course, there is a learning curve, but it's extremely fast if you have very well defined that scope that you're going to tackle.
I guess it'd be a couple things. One, as Paul alluded to, don't overplan your planning improvement, right? Just get started. It doesn't have to be big. Just try something out and make it about a business problem. I'm sure you have some business problems in mind, some people that are willing to take some risk on. Just try it out and see if it works for you. What you're often going to find is you're going to learn a lot more by acting your way versus thinking your way. So that's probably the best piece of advice I give. And the second one would be Anaplan is different. It is a business-owned solution. The logic that behind it, the configuration, everything you hear about. So make sure you embed people from your businesses on the projects. You're going to probably leverage the ecosystem of partners, which is awesome, but also get your people trained up as fast as you can. It's just going to be that much more impactful. It's going to help you with the change, and you're ultimately going to have a better product at the end of the day.
Probably the top 3 for me are setting a medium to long-term vision of what the platform is going to build to and what sequential manner in which you'll do that. And the second piece to manage that would be around governance. Spend a lot of time up front in terms of building a powerful data hub, because the more you do that, it'll make the connection between all your models seamless and minimize errors. And then the third piece is around platform ownership. and two individuals on my team are full-time owning, model building, administering, and building the architecture of our platform. And that's an extremely powerful manner to which kind of to scale this platform. It can't be a day job or part of someone's day job. And having that full-time commitment and advocacy has allowed us to scale as quickly as we have.
Well, thank you guys. I think we have about 5 to 10 minutes left. So why don't I open it up to the audience? If you have questions, raise your hand. Somebody will come around with a microphone, and then we can have the panel answer those questions. Do we have any questions? If not, oh, we got one right down here.
Hi, how has it been getting people within your organization to adopt the platform? Has that been a challenge, or people kind of embraced it with open arms?
From our standpoint, we've been able to increase the most adoption by identifying for each functional group or general management group what is the biggest pain point that Anaplan is going to help alleviate. And one example would be to get our operations leaderships to adopt. We introduced driver-based modeling. That was a different approach to labor forecasting that we previously had approached budgeting with. So demonstrating that Anaplan is a win-win and it's not a top-down push-down has been a winning strategy for us, and it's different across how we engage each of those distinct groups.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, so we purposely chose to go where people were asking for help, so that always makes the change a bit easier. It's not being pushed on them. And yet you still will meet some resistance, and we're replacing a lot of Excel files. People love Excel files. I love Excel files. When they start to play with the platform, though, and you are going to get them exposed to it faster than maybe some regular technology that takes a while, what we've heard is that it's very intuitive, it's easy to use, people like it. The auditing, the history log, that kind of stuff is really powerful. And so they get the same things they like from their Excel files, but in a manner that's faster, more collaborative. So we've had more of a pull than anything since we got started.
Anybody else? We got a question there in the back as well.
For Charles, what segment of the business is using Anaplan? Upstream, downstream, a whole company, or who?
So it started in our upstream area. Parts of our downstream group, it's specifically doing some sales forecasting, are now looking at Anaplan. So it's been mostly upstream so far. Global upstream. So we are spread across all of the different regions. And we're very tightly connected with some of our other businesses. So we've been sort of the guinea pigs, if you will, for this. But we've got a lot of interest from other parts of Shell as well.
So looking at total cost of ownership, have you moved all of your builds to internal resources, or are you still predominantly consultant? And how do you look at that over time in your journey?
I can talk in our case. I mean, definitely we started with Sonam, as I mentioned. So we had to have a great partner since the beginning. But when we got, let's say, convinced about the tool, we started in parallel discussing with our IT, which is called solutions internally, to build pretty much what Pierre was mentioning as COE internally. So that it's being built right now. That's being built. We still use partners to start complex models from scratch. But when it comes to do tweaks or to adjust things, it's already a capability that we're getting inside. Today in my team, when I need to hire someone, Anaplan is the skill the same type of skill that you need when you need just Excel maybe 15, 20 years ago. So at that level now Anaplan is internalized in the skills of the company.
I think we have time for probably one or two more questions. We got one more in the back here.
As you embarked on your journey on Anaplan, what criteria did you use to evaluate your integration partners, and it looks like you're all pretty large companies. How did you, utilize your IT organizations in terms of the initial, model building and integration?
So what do you mean by integration partners? So I'm clear.
Well, the partners that maybe helped you implement Anaplan, the
Okay.
partners that are in the other
Sure.
hall.
All right. Yeah.
The
Okay.
34
Great.
strong.
Yep. Got it. So in our particular case, we actually worked with the Anaplan team, and I was mentioning it was a really long process, but when we had this moment come up on the revenue forecasting, we actually created kind of this proof of concept in less than a week, to be honest with you. We dragged a whole bunch of stuff in. Part of that process of creating that proof of concept, we had our partner Voyant working with us at the time. And so right from the beginning, there was a confidence level that was built, and that was at the suggestion of the, of the Anaplan team. So I think we were pretty successful there.
All right, I think we got time for one more question. So does anybody have a final question for the panel? If
Can
not,
I just add to the last question?
what's that?
Can I just add to the last?
Yeah, please do.
So the other thing I would offer is to leverage the community. One of the things that we really like about Anaplan is they are very open. They will connect people. Obviously, we're all here for this reason. So it's often just talking, sharing experiences with other companies across businesses, types, and functions. You're going to get a lot from that as well. And it's just word of mouth and just what's their experience like. And you'll find something that resonates with what you're looking for in your company.
Well, Ryan, Charles, Ignacio, and Paul, thank you guys for bearing the heat and coming out for the panel. If you have additional questions for us, feel free to find us afterwards. We're happy to help. Thank you, everybody.